two, three.
Oh, let's go. I love to see the temple. I'm going there someday to feel the Holy Spirit, to listen and to pray for the temple.
It is time for another episode of The Cultural Hall. It is a Temple Ticker episode where we talk all about the temples of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, 17 announced at the Fall Conference of 2024. This is going to be all about those different locations. This is going to be a lot of I told you so, but we'll get to that. We'll get to the I told you so's. I'm joined by Corey K. Ward, the Pharaoh himself. How are you, sir?
What's up? Doing well.
We are recording this late on the Sunday evening. I at a wedding, my father-in-law asleep in the other room, Corey with, you know what, if you haven't not yet checked out the YouTube video for the Cultural Hall, it is worth checking out for Corey's hair for this episode. I love it. I actually like that better than other times.
It's a bit out of control, but it's one of those days when you don't shower, I guess.
Yeah, listen, you have pajama church, and then you get super excited about all the temples. I understand how that goes, and that's where we are. So perfectly fine. We're going to take about a minute or two and talk about each of the different temples. There are 17, so it's going to be a big old episode, but we'll get through them as quick as we can, tell you about them. And then, of course, in the future, we'll talk all about these different ones. Should we do... Let us start. We talked about between 15 and 20 when we chatted last, so spot on with trying to get to
There we
500
go.
by the year 2030. Anything that you were overwhelmingly surprised about before we jump into everything?
Um, I mean, 17 isn't a round number, so I didn't expect that. But it does bring up the total for President Nelson to 185.
Mm-hmm.
And now the total temples will be 367, which means that he's announced just over 50%, 50.4% of all temples.
Okay.
So effectively, in his presidency, in his 6, 7 years he's been president of the church, he's doubled the amount of temples.
Geez. Okay, so doubling the effort. I like that. So in order for it to be a round number, you said 87 or 67? 367, 280. Where you said something then
His round number for the number that he's personally announced is 185.
185. Yeah, okay, so he could do 15 and then do 200 in his lifetime.
I guess, yeah, one more conference.
Yeah, that makes sense to
There we
me.
go.
Okay, that's why they did it. Because he's got to get to 200, but if they did 32 with this one, then it's like, well, you're essentially saying goodbye to President Nelson.
But this conference basically made it so that he's over 50% of all the temples. And
Okay.
so, yeah, it kind of brings him to that milestone. President Hinckley announced 79 in his tenure, which was a little bit over 50% of all temples. So he more than doubled all the temples. So in that aspect, he hasn't quite surpassed President Hinckley,
Do you
but
know
still
the
in the
exact
amount of
percent?
temples.
Do you know the exact percent about President Hinckley? Because there is, I've made the mistake of the rabbit hole of the President Hinckley and President Nelson don't like each other theme. Have you seen that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm aware.
It's unreal what people will put out on the internet. So maybe he's trying to beat him in all of those things. It seems silly to even say that, but what would that need to be? How many would he have to do?
Well, I mean, so he's way surpassed. So I said the president
In number, but not
in
percentage.
number, but not percentage. So when President Hinckley became president of the church in 1995, there was only like around 50 temples. So him announcing 79 more than doubled.
Mhm.
But when President Nelson came, it was about 160.
Mhm.
And yeah, it would be about double, so 50% higher. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if it's statistics, you can skew them to tell you any story you want. So,
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, don't chase down the rabbit hole of President Hinckley and President Nelson hate each other and there's some sort of like,
I
anyway.
don't think they hate each other. I think it stems from the talk where he gave like in 1990, where he's like, hey, we should not use Mormon that much. We should use
Right.
the full name of the church.
Right.
And then President Hinckley said, yeah, no, you know what? Mormon's okay.
Right.
So that kind of stemmed the rumors of like, oh, there's a rivalry between the two.
Yeah,
So
rivalry is probably better than hate. Okay, we got to get into the temples. Let's go.
disagreement. Come on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
disagreement. A hearty, heartfelt disagreement. Mexico, we go first.
Yeah, the first one that was announced was Juchitán de Zaragoza, Mexico. A lot of cities in Mexico have like a longer name than what they normally go by.
Hmm.
So, for example, like the other temple in Oaxaca is Oaxaca de Juarez, but the church just says Oaxaca, Mexico.
Okay.
And the stake in Yucatan just says Yucatan, Mexico.
Okay.
And
So
so,
Yucatan Temple.
yeah, so I kind of think that might drop the de Zaragoza. It was just kind of formality. We'll see. But yeah, this will be the 26th temple in
Jeez.
Mexico. And like I said, it's the second one to be in the state of Oaxaca. So not a lot of not a lot of states in Mexico have second temples. So that's kind of a new thing. The temple is located on the Isthmus of Tehuantepec, which is kind of like the skinny part of Mexico. If you're a Mesoamerican model fan, a lot of people like locate the skinny neck, the narrow neck of the Book of Mormon in this location. Um,
Oh.
but it's receiving a lot of attention lately from Mexican government. It's kind of an industrial area. There's like a big port just south in Salina Cruz. Um, right now, Mexico is trying to uh, do, kind of be a rival to the Panama Canal. Basically, the strategy is that you can unload shipping containers in Salina Cruz, and then through a railroad that they're building right now, you can bring them all the way to the port of Quetzalcoatlus in Veracruz in Mexico and the Atlantic side.
Hmm.
So there's a possibility that I mean this is an important economic area for Mexico, and so
Hmm.
it's interesting that the church is also now paying more attention to this area. So
Well,
there'll
and
probably be about three
it's also
stakes
fun
and
though
a
that
handful of
you get to
districts
say
that go here.
Isthmus of Tehuantepec. The Isthmus of Tehuantepec. It's like take the hardest words together to put to say the Isthmus of Tehuantepec. Sorry, three states, two or three districts.
Yeah. So one was not on my radar. I would have guessed other temples from Mexico were more imminent, so it's interesting that this one was chosen first.
Hmm. And then we go to El Salvador.
Yeah, this is in my predictions. I said Santa Ana, El Salvador. It will be the second temple in the country. A little bit larger district, probably like 9 or 10 stakes. So I think for a while, El Salvador probably deserved a second temple. So this is it.
El Salvador. Now I like this one because it's fun. It's got the two L's, but it's Medellin. Medellin, Colombia.
Yeah, that's
It's
kind
supposed
of
to be
the
just a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous place.
what's the Colombian accent, Medellin. Yeah, it's called the city of the eternal spring because it's basically 72 degrees all year long.
Jeez. That sounds
Um,
perfect.
I actually had a friend here that was recently moved here, and he was always talking about like, do you think there'll be a temple in Medellin? And I'm like, yeah, I think pretty soon. And so yeah, pretty soon. They just created their third stake in that city, so it was kind of on my radar as something that would happen soon. Probably be about 4 stakes total that go to this temple, maybe a district.
Now, I thought this next one was pretty interesting because when President Nelson said, "Hey, we're going to announce temples, but try and be a little reverent, everyone." If you listened, I listened on the radio to it, and I don't know if it's a different news feed than it was with the TV, but they're going along, and I'm like, "Oh, people are behaving themselves," and then it's like Santiago, Dominican Republic, and you hear this from the conference center. I thought that was hilarious.
I did hear that too on the internet transmission. Um, we talked about this. It would be
Uh-huh.
the second temple in Dominican Republic up there in the north. Probably about 7 stakes and 2 or 3 districts. The temple we talked about the Caribbean hasn't had a temple under construction in a while since Puerto Rico was dedicated. So this is a little bit bigger of a step for them.
So we're right again, is what you're saying. I like that. Let's go to Chile.
Yeah, so this was the surprise. We talked about southern Chile in my predictions, but I said I wasn't sure what city it would be. I guess
Hmm.
probably Osorno. But about a year ago, they moved the headquarters of the Osorno mission to Puerto Montt, Chile,
Hmm.
and in nearby Punto or nearby, I think it's Puerto uh, Varas. They created a new stake, so they split this stake. So they moved the mission headquarters here, and they moved a new stake. So I was kind of like, maybe they'll be at the temple here instead of Osorno, and I guess it will be. It's probably a little bit easier for people to fly from the far southern Chile area into this city, so maybe that's why it was announced here.
Because it's
But yeah,
like
it'll
middle
be
of the country,
middle
right?
of the country, but like population wise, it's basically like super far south
Hmm.
of where most people live in Chile,
Hmm.
like almost like as south as you can go before you get to the really rugged mountain part. So yeah, there'll probably be about 8 stakes there, but maybe keep an eye out for the future. Maybe another one in southern Chile, like in Valdivia or Temuco, is also a possibility since it wasn't chosen to be Osorno. So
Hmm.
that's kind of an interesting choice, I guess.
This next one I was pretty surprised about Dublin, Ireland. Although, when we talk about places that just don't want to go to more than 2, 3 hours, I guess Dublin makes sense.
Yeah, I mean it's an island,
Mhm.
not part of mainland Europe, not part of the mainland of the of Great Britain. So uh, you have one stake in Belfast, Northern Ireland, that's part of the UK, and then one stake in Dublin, Ireland. Um, I mean, the church is, relatively small, only about like 12 wards in both of these territories. But it's pretty isolated from the other temples in the UK. They just announced that one last time in Scotland, so I thought maybe it would be a little bit longer till we get Dublin, but no, I guess it was part of the plan.
Well, the people in Scotland would like everyone in Ireland to know that Scotland was first. So don't forget that. Don't
That's
forget
fair.
that. There's an amazing book. I think it's a signature book, maybe Oxford University Press, about the saints in Ireland. We never ended up doing the interview, but I got the book. It's fascinating. It's just like we did an interview about the saints in Japan. Same kind of look, just the different things that saints in Ireland, because you have a lot of longtime members of the church there, but there's not a whole lot of growth. So way to go, Dublin. That'll be fun. Maybe I'll wait until the Dublin Temple before I go to Ireland. That's on my bucket list of places to go. So we'll see.
Nice.
Yeah,
How about this next location?
that was
Milan, Italy.
I've never been, but I've wanted to go. And yeah, I'll wait for the temple in Milan. Seems fancy.
Yeah, this will be the second temple in Italy. The Rome temple was a big deal because
Mhm.
it took like 15 years to build
Yeah, it
and
wasn't built
announce
in
and
a day,
everything.
that's for sure. I know that.
But I remember hearing there was some guy in my ward that was from Milan, and he was saying that however all the members up there in the northern part of the country were complaining because they urged them to go to the Rome temple, even though the one in Switzerland was closer.
Hmm.
So I guess now they'll have one in their own area as well. There'll probably be about five, maybe 6 stakes that will go to this. Milan's one of the only cities in Italy that has 2 stakes in it. So
Hmm. So reasonable, but it wasn't one that we predicted. But now we get into some of these places that we were like, okay, here we go. We knew this was coming. Nigeria.
yeah, we talked about Abuja. It's the capital up in the northern part of the country. It's kind of a big deal because this is like a Muslim majority area. The Christian area is more the southern part, but the church has grown a fair amount in the past decade. There's 3 stakes now, and there's one in neighboring, I think it's Josh or Jos is another city. And they just organized a mission last year in this city. So what's really amazing is that Nigeria only has one dedicated temple, and this will be the sixth total. So
Hmm.
there's 5 that are in the planning stages right now.
Jeez, jeez. And then let's do Uganda, and then we'll take a quick break. We'll come back and do the rest of these.
Yeah, we've been talking about Uganda for a long time because it was the country with the most members of the church without a temple. They had about 25,000 or 20 something thousand members of the church with 3 stakes, and there'll probably be a handful of districts, including Rwanda, which the church has been growing a lot over the past just like 2 years in Rwanda, so that will be a little bit closer for them as well. I'm sure Elder Price is happy if you know that joke.
Yay! They should play that up. They should play that up. I appreciate. I had forgotten about that. Yes, way to go, Elder Price. You made it happen, Elder Price. And so many people have no idea what we're talking about right now. Um, yeah, I it's pretty incredible when you see the growth that the church is making in Africa, and knowing that so many of the temples probably that lead us towards 500, now that you're starting to get to where each of the states in the United States will have them, and we'll get to those coming up in a minute. Uh, yeah, the growth towards 500, the push towards 500 is likely going to be within Africa. Let's take a quick break. When we come back in the second half, we are going to do the remainder of the new temples announced at the 2024 General Conference Fall October session by President Nelson. Come back, do that in the second half. bestdjinutah.com is the website. That is where you go if you would like me to come and DJ your event. Now, will I do a family reunion where you all wear the same t-shirts? You bet I will. Will I travel to wherever you're at? Uh-huh. Am I reasonable as far as what I cost? Yes. Yes. Do I bring a good time? Yeah, all the things. Listen, Best DJ in Utah, it's my company. It's a thing I do that allows me to be able to have the time to do the cultural hall. So if someone's getting married, you think, man, they need a great DJ. You're throwing a party, whether it's a 50th or 60th or 40th or 20th or whatever the party is. I've done them all and would love to be able to do that. An anniversary party, certainly done those. I did a baptism in 2023. Yeah, we did a big dance party at a baptism. Spoiler, not a Mormon baptism, but it was fun nonetheless. bestdjinutah.com is a website. I will get back to you within 24 hours with a quote. Come on now. bestdjinutah.com.
Imagine running a small business today. It's challenging. Imaging and internet presence is an absolute must. Even with that, you're still a small star in a bright cyber universe. Now, imagine you have someone who understands how to get your site designed for your talents and then easily searched by potential clients. Imagine Lennon Design. Whether it's strictly a website or a whole package of logo creation, advertising media, and promotional materials, Lennon Design is your partner in business. They'll test the boundaries of their imagination to create something unique for you. When you need creative, affordable design, let it be Lennon Design. Call 801-699-3022 or visit lennondesign.com.
Here in the second half of the Temple Ticker, we talk about the remaining temples that have not yet been discussed. We'll probably do the other temple news in an upcoming Temple Ticker. So let's just get these other ones that were announced and the people that they'll serve, and then we'll take a break for maybe a week or so, come back and do another Temple Ticker. If you're first time, make sure you subscribe to the Cultural Hall wherever you get this so that you do not miss any episode, including these Temple Ticker episodes. Mozambique.
Yeah. So this is a big deal for a reason you might not think. This is the second temple announced for Mozambique. A few years ago, there was one announced for Beira, Mozambique, which is kind of more in the southern part. Maputo is this, or sorry, the other one is Beira is in the central part, and this temple will be in the southern part, kind of on the border with South Africa. It's a big deal because there has never been a country where they've announced a second temple where the first one wasn't already dedicated.
Interesting.
So normally, I mean, that's the track record that there's been. They announce one temple for the country first, and then wait a couple of years, and then maybe look at a second one eventually. But Mozambique has been growing a lot in just the past decade. The numbers of baptisms have been huge. The number of new stakes and wards have been big. During COVID, there was a law where they couldn't have like a public baptism. So for like all of 2020 and 2021, there was no baptisms, and then all of a sudden 2022, it's like a bajillion baptisms because everyone was waiting.
That's awesome.
So yeah, there's about 3 stakes in that city, and there's also a stake in the little small country of Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland. So they'll probably be a little bit closer to this temple as well.
And then we go stateside, where we go to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Went there this summer. Gorgeous place. Not where I thought. I had sort of heard some speculation around like Ontario. I can't remember if that's in the Oregon side or the Idaho side, but somewhere right kind of around, outside of Boise, more towards Oregon. But that's not what this is at all. This is far north, Idaho.
Yeah, I predicted this one in the past, but I kind of held off for this conference. It's basically a second Spokane area temple. The temple in Spokane is one of those small Hinkley ones, and there's just been a lot of growth of the church in the Spokane area. There's like 10 stakes, so that will probably take about half of them. There'll probably be about 6 stakes in northern Panhandle, Idaho. So that puts the number of temples in Idaho to 10.
Jeez. And college town. Coeur d'Alene is a college town too, so you have the younger kids being able to go to the temple there too. I like that. Queen Creek, I thought that was going to be northern Arizona, but it's not. That's down around the Phoenix area.
Definitely, me too. I thought that temple in Gilbert's like really big. It is still growing, but not as fast as it used to. I know that the church has a lot of kind of similar to like Eagle Mountain, Saratoga Springs. The church has a lot of land also in this Queen Creek area. The East Valley of the Phoenix metro area has a lot of members of the church, a lot more than the West Valley. So I think they'll probably be about 10 stakes and growing over the past more years when they finally build this temple.
Well, and that Phoenix is like one of the largest cities in the United States. Someone was telling me about that the other day, where I thought, oh, it's LA, it's New York, it's some of these other places, but Phoenix, I think, is in the top 10, and that surprised me.
Yeah. Um, I think it's yeah, there's like New York, LA, Chicago, Dallas, Houston, and then Phoenix.
I'm looking, I'm looking. It is the fifth
Fifth.
largest city.
Yeah, a little bit like metro area and city are a little bit different because
Mhm.
Phoenix is just such a large city, but metro area, I think it looks like uh
It's the fifth largest city,
number 10
1.4
metro area.
million residents and growing, but I guess largest in what size wise? Maybe something like that. Well,
Yeah, so the whole area is just called the Valley. So this would be the fourth temple in the Valley, and then the eighth in Arizona.
jeez. Good for you, Arizona. Texas, where everything is bigger, even if it's not actually. El Paso, Texas.
Yeah, this is also the 10th temple in Texas. It's interesting to see Idaho and Texas with the same amount. Um, we talked about this temple before, how there is already a temple in Ciudad Juarez, just like stones throw away, but there happens to be a river and a big wall in the between those two cities.
Mm,
So in the past, it has been difficult for people in El Paso to go to Mexico, especially if you're like on the military base. You're not really allowed to leave the country.
mm.
Either that, you have to drive up to Albuquerque. So yeah, this will be big for them. There's three stakes in the city. There's also one up in Las Cruces, New Mexico, so about four stakes in this area.
And then Huntsville, Alabama. Where is this in reference to the other Alabama temple?
Yeah, this is like the surprise to me. The dark horse. I did not anticipate a Huntsville temple. Um, I anticipated maybe a Mobile, Alabama temple because
Mm,
it's about in between Tallahassee and Baton Rouge. There's a big gap of temples there up in the Gulf area. So it was a big surprise to see Huntsville. There's only two stakes in Huntsville. Maybe Chattanooga, Tennessee will come over, so about three. It's in the far northern side, kind of by the Tennessee border. What came to my mind is that all these modular temples that are being built, they're
mhm.
actually being constructed in Bessemer, Alabama, just outside of Birmingham.
Interesting.
So maybe there's some sort of like inspiration about like, hey, like we're building all these modules in Alabama, so let's just ship a few an hour north in Huntsville,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah,
don't
why
know,
wouldn't you?
pay them off for their labor.
Hey, you guys did it? Yeah, we give you a temple. And they're like, too tall. And you're like, okay, thanks. Well, I guess we'll have to find another place. Uh, the idea that Wisconsin never had a temple before it was announced today. How do you hopefully you know this because I'm about to set you up. How many states after today's announcement don't have temples either announced or functioning?
Previously there was 10,
Okay.
now there's only eight.
Okay. Because we added what the first one in New Jersey, which we'll talk about in a second, and this first one in Wisconsin. You know the question is coming. What are the eight remaining? But let's go. Let's talk about Wisconsin first.
Okay. Yeah. With the kind of the geography of Wisconsin, the population is like really close to Chicago, so I think that's one of the reasons for a long time there hasn't been a temple here.
Hmm.
It's also kind of I couldn't really pin down if it would be Milwaukee or Madison or the Green Bay area because they're not all the stakes there aren't really that centralized. But I guess they chose Milwaukee for that.
Hmm.
Um, the church has a really interesting there was a really interesting church building in Milwaukee. It was called the Milwaukee Branch. They just sold it like last year, but it's a really unique design. Um, and I kind of hope that they choose to kind of incorporate this design into it. They sold it to some kind of like Boys and Girls Club, kind of it's called Safe and Sound. I think it's
Hmm.
like owned by the city. They like took the spire off. It's kind of funny to look at the before and after picture. I guess
This,
they want
this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I guess they just wanted to not make it so religious. I don't know.
There's
What's your
this
thought?
building. This building looks exactly like there's a building that the church owned in the 70s and 80s in Cleveland, on the east side of Cleveland, and they sold it to another church. But it looks almost identical to this building. By the way, all of the things that we're saying, oh, you need to look and see this, you can find a link to them in the show notes to be able to see it. But yeah, almost identical to this building.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it was probably like the 1930s type um, design that they were going for.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. That's why we like the Pharaoh because he digs up stuff like that. So yeah, I hope they build it like that. That'd be incredible. The Chicago temple sort of looks like that with the steep roof, that kind of angle things. Why
Oh
not?
yeah.
Let's do
Hmm.
it. Summit, New Jersey, where my mom grew up. She This is my mom, no longer a member of the church. I said, Mom, you hear they Summit, New Jersey gets a temple? And she says, Oh, that makes me so sad.
Interesting.
But
Um,
first in New Jersey.
yeah, we talked about in the temple predictions. I was thinking because it is more difficult for a lot of people that live out in New Jersey to go into the city of Manhattan, take a train and everything to get there. That I was thinking one for New Jersey would be imminent. I said, there's Morristown, there's Scotch Plains, there's Newark. I said those three cities, and Summit happens to be right in the middle of
Mm,
those three places.
yeah.
And Summit, it's a really small town, a really small suburb, basically. So it makes me believe that the church already has a site picked out if they are so specific in the name of the temple.
Mm,
Um, if not, maybe there's a church building just a little bit north of the town itself of Summit, technically in the township of Short Hills, which is like an unincorporated place.
hmm
Sorry, the link is wrong. I'll fix that. But um, there's a meeting house that only has one ward there, and it's kind of a big lot. So I'm thinking maybe um, they'll choose to move that ward to another building and then build the temple there. So we'll see.
Hmm.
And there'll probably be about 5 stakes that go to this temple.
A fun fact that no one asked for, but that I happen to know, that is the ward that Peggy Fletcher Stack went to when she was growing up.
Wow, that's
Because my
neat.
mom and Peggy Fletcher Stack were friends growing up.
Okay.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
you go.
it is kind of an old building.
Yep.
So
What are you saying
it's
about
kind of
Peggy
like
Fletcher
19th.
Stack and my mom? Watch your mouth, young man.
No, it's just that it's like a well organized, well established ward, I guess is what I'm
Backpedal,
trying to
backpedal, backpedal, backpedal.
say. There
I'm
we
just
go.
giving you a hard time. Okay. So, before we get to price and I get to tell everyone how right I was, what are the 8 states that no longer have or that don't have temples yet?
Okay. Um, Starting on the west, South Dakota,
Okay.
Mississippi.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I mean Alabama just got its second. It's funny that Mississippi didn't get one. West Virginia, number three,
Okay.
Delaware,
Okay.
Rhode Island,
Mm-hmm.
New Hampshire,
Mm-hmm.
Vermont, Maine.
Hmm. Okay. It's going to be Maine. That's my prediction. I'll write that down.
It's a good
Maine.
bet. Yeah.
Next one. Yep. It's nice up there. I'd go up any fall to be able to be there for that temple. Let's talk about how right I was. Did I say price? Because we went through the
You knew
list
it. Yeah.
and price. I said, I only predicted one. You predicted a bunch, so you knew you'd at least get some percent right. It either had to be right or it had to be wrong, and I was right. Price, Utah.
Yeah, after I looked that up, after you said that, I looked up kind of the map of property ownership in Carbon County,
Mm-hmm.
and I did see that there was a very large site, about 10 acres, just on the west side of the city, just off the highway, kind of by the Carbon Canal and the fairgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I'm predicting it will be built. There's about 8 stakes in this area, going all the way down to like Castle Dale, and
Castledale and Farron,
yeah, there's even a YSA stake in Price.
because you
So I
have the
think,
College of East or the Utah State Eastern or something like that.
yeah, so that's about 8 stakes in the area. So yeah, this is the 31st temple in Utah, and it's also the 150th temple in the United States.
I'm trying to find it because I wish I could remember his name off of the top of my wait for it. I think I've just found it. Hold on, hold on, hold on. Where is his name? So a couple of weeks ago, I put it out there that they were going to get the temple in price, and everyone was like, "Ah, here it is. Greg Palmer is his name."
Call
Followed
them
the
out.
culture hall. Did you hear this?
I think so.
He said, "I was born and raised in Price, and I'm almost 40 years old. I have heard Price is going to get a temple every general conference since the day I was born." To which I said to Greg M. Palmer, "Shall we make a wager, Greg M. Palmer?" He said, "If Price has a temple announced, I'll get another tattoo." To which I said, "A tattoo of the Cultural Hall logo?" And he says, "If it doesn't happen, I'll shave my head." And I said, "Stay close, Greg, because it's happening in 2 weeks." To which he said, and now this is a week ago, and I love that I'm reading social media to everyone, but so it is. He says, "I'll just call and schedule my tattoo appointment. I just got off the phone with my parents. They said the church has made a large land purchase, and the stake presidents in the area are asking for prayers that a temple will be built. And then today, shortly after President Nelson made the announcement, he said, I need recommendations on a tattoo artist in the Salt Lake Provo area. So if he, that is Greg M. Palmer, gets the Cultural Hall logo tattooed on his body, know that I will share that. And that I'll feel a little uncomfortable that we made a bet that got a man a tattoo of our logo, but also pretty super proud about it.
Nice. I like it.
It's amazing to me when you look at like locations within Utah, Price, and I know so many people that are like, here we go, they're going to talk Utah, but Price really is a place that and all that kind of valley that is pretty far considering Utah as far as getting to a temple goes, because there's not anything Moab or anywhere in the Emery County area. So you have to go all the way into the other side of the Wasatch Mountains towards I-15 to get any other temple around there, right?
Yeah, and they're assigned to Manti anyways. So like if you want to be a temple worker, you have to take an extra drive, go all
Yeah.
the way there,
You kind of
go
go
around
up,
the valley. Yeah.
yeah, go up and then around. I mean, that'll be remedied a little bit because we'll get either the Springville Mapleton or Spanish Fork Temple in April 25 market. I'm pointing to the outfield, but yeah, kind of cool. Kind of
Nice.
cool. It feels so good to be so right, and then like sort of like a jerk that I'm not being humble about it, but also I was so right. I don't know. Just
Yeah,
is.
I did see those the plat document in the city website. It did there was one of the documents that said September 2024. So it was a recent purchase, like he said.
Yep. Yep. Any other things, any ones that were not announced that you were surprised that they did not occur?
Like I talked about the city with the most stakes at a temple, Port Harcourt, Nigeria. It's really close to the other temples that are announced there, but I still think one day pretty soon we'll get a temple. Um, yeah, a lot of like the long-term ones that have been on my list for a while, it's kind of dwindling down, and now it's almost silly season.
Hmm,
When that's kind of the term in politics when kind of there's about to be an election, but no one's announced yet. It's called
mhm.
silly season, where you're just like speculating about anything.
Sure.
And I feel like a lot of these temple announcements are just like silly season. Like, where could it be? I don't know. Anywhere. And you
Is,
probably would be right.
is there so now because the country that had not had a temple announced has a temple, what is the next country like that?
Yeah, the next one is Malaysia.
Okay.
There's one being built in Singapore, which for all intents and purposes, it's kind of like that same area. Malaysia doesn't have a stake, so it's a little bit of an impediment to having a temple announced. So we'll
Hmm.
see. Maybe on the other side, because Malaysia is split into two parts. So maybe that the side that's away from the Singapore area, maybe they'll get a stake eventually, and maybe they'll have a temple announced. Another one I'm looking forward to is Togo, a French-speaking country in Africa. That kind of matches the pattern of a lot of these new African temples. So I think that's probably imminent. And then Jamaica. There's just one stake on the island, but I think probably would get a temple eventually.
Yeah. All right. I'll call that out too. There we go. Spanish Fork, Mapleton, Springville area, and Jamaica. Start
There we
owning
go.
that now. All right. Well, we hope that this episode has nourished and strengthened your body.
Hope that if you weren't able to listen this week, that you will listen next week.
And that when the time comes, you'll be able to travel home in safety. Don't forget, we'll pick up another temple ticker where we talk about the news and all the different contentions around the temple and the heights and the fact that now they're saying the end of 2026 for a downtown Temple Square. I caught that in general conference. We'll get into all that stuff, but that will be a future episode.
In the meantime, Chris at Alpine Lakes Travel, Rick McGee, Debbie Wanless, Chocolate Cake Bites Podcast, and the Tiger with a U will be saving a seat for you.
Back row,
Of the Cultural
the
Hall.
Cultural Hall.
Save me a seat, it's sure to be neat on the back row. We really